Hey, that's even better. That's probably why we're not live on Radio X. I've been talking to myself. Gosh almighty, what is wrong with me? It's been one of those days, guys and gals. All right, well, I hope that everybody is tuned in and ready for the show. Oh, good Lord. It's been a crazy day. It's been a crazy morning, so um, I hope that everybody can just bear with me. Um, it's like I said, it's just been a crazy day. I'm not sure what's going on in my life. I've been here in East Tennessee helping people, helping family out, and today it's been a crazy day. So, yeah, yeah, it's been crazy. I'm gonna shoot a message and let them know I am not on the air in Australia. All right, so we'll see how that goes. All right, so and I don't see anybody in my chat just yet. What the heck? Where is everybody? I know I didn't get this on here in a real timely manner, so I guess that's probably my fault. But and then I'm talking to myself. That doesn't help. So when I had the headphones on but didn't have the microphone on, goodness gracious, what is wrong with me? Well, I could go through a list. All right. Well, we will get going nonetheless with our normal things that we do. We have the first thing we do is we cover the FEMA daily briefing, which is just, well, it's not exactly like, but it's similar to what the president gets. Hey, Chris, welcome. And Chris needs to he usually reminds me to have everybody please like, follow, share, and subscribe. I appreciate Chris for being here. And Chris, I was stressed this morning, man. I was running the last second trying to do a million things, and it just was a stressful day. But we got it. I'm on the air, and everybody can hear me now. I was talking to myself for a little bit, Chris, so I don't know what's wrong with me. All right. So as everybody knows, this show is basically, I am the anti we're going to die today. There's several prepper podcasts and survivalist podcasts and shows that are on that tell you what's going wrong, why we're going to die, when we're going to die. In fact, one gave a date of 420 of when they were going to shut down the entire country and we're going to be under martial law. I haven't seen any signs of that, but hey, I'm not an expert in these matters. And another one claims that we're going to nuke a country, but there, well, I do actually. Let's go to some breaking news first, because this one is interesting. Let me pull this up here. Well, they're all interesting, but this one is breaking news. Does anybody use the program Signal? Yes, Saul. It's been a day. There we go. Share. If anybody uses the app Signal, you're familiar with what Signal is. Signal is like messaging, Facebook Messenger, whatever. Yes, I'm huffing and puffing. Yes, yes, you're correct. It would not be stress. It would not be a Monday if there wasn't stress, and today is a Monday. Oh, goodness. So at any rate, Signal is like a messaging app, kind of like Facebook Messenger or texting. Well, apparently, the Trump administration accidentally included a reporter on a national security leader group about upcoming military strikes in Lemon. We haven't bombed Lemon, have we? I don't even know where the hell Lemon is. Yemen. I didn't think it could be real. Then the bombs started falling. This is from the reporter who's reporting this from the Atlantic, Jeffrey Goldberg. Says the world found out shortly before 2 p.m. Eastern on 15 March that the United States was bombing the Houthi targets across Yemen. I, however, knew 2 hours before the first bombs exploded that the attack might be coming. The reason I knew this is that Pete Hegseth, Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense, had texted me the plan for the war at 11:44 a.m. The plan included precise information about weapons packages, targets, and timing. The story technically begins shortly below. He saw Don Lemon bombed on New Year's Eve. The story technically begins shortly after the Hamas invasion of southern Israel in 23 of October, or October 23. The Houthis, which is an Iran-backed terrorist organization whose motto is "God is great, death to America, death to Israel, curse on the Jews, victory to Islam," soon launched attacks on Israel and on international shipping, creating havoc for global trade. Throughout 2024, the Biden administration was ineffective, shocker, in countering these Houthi attacks. The incoming Trump administration promised a tougher response. This is where Pete Hegseth and I come in. On Tuesday, March 11th, I received a connection request on Signal from a user identified as Michael Walls. Signal is an open source encrypted message. Slow down. Signal is an open source encrypted messaging service popular with journals and others who seek more privacy than other text messaging services are capable of delivering. I assume the Michael Walls in question was President Trump's national security advisor. I did not assume, however, that the request was from the actual Michael Walls I have met in the past, and though I didn't find it particularly strange that he might be reaching out to me, I did think it somewhat unusual, given the Trump's administration's contentious relationship with journalists and Trump's periodic fixation on me, specifically. It immediately crossed my mind that someone could be masquerading as Walls in order to somehow entrap me. It is not all uncommon these days for nefarious actors to try to induce journalists to share information that could be used against them. I accepted the connection request, hoping this was an actual national security advisor, and that he wanted to chat about Ukraine or Iran or some important matters. 2 days later, Thursday, 4:28 p.m., this is Eastern, I received notice that I was included in a Signal chat group, and it was called the Houthi PC Small Group. A message to the group from Michael Walls read as the follows: Team establishing a principal group for coordination on Houthis, particularly for over the next 72 hours. My deputy, Alex Wong, is pulling together a Tiger team at deputy/agency chief of staff level, following up from the meeting in the sit room this morning, for actions that will be sending that out later this evening. The message continued: please, the best of staff, point of contacts from your team for us to coordinate with over the next couple days and over the weekend. Thanks. The term Principals Committee generally refers to a group of senior-most security officials, including the SecDef, the Secretary of State, and the Treasury, as well as the Director of CIA. It should go out saying, but I'll say it anyways, that I've never been invited to the White House Principal Committee meeting, and that in my many years of reporting on national security matters, I had never heard of one being convened over a commercial messaging app. 1 minute later, a person identified only as MAR, the Secretary of State, as Mark Antonio Rubio, wrote, Mike Needham for State, apparently designating the current counselor of the State Department as his rep. At this same moment, a signal you identified as J.D. Vance wrote Andy Baker for VP. 1 minute after that, presumably Tulsi Gabbard, the Director of National Intelligence, or someone masquerading as her, wrote Joe Kent for DNI. 9 minutes later, Scott B., apparently Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, or someone spoofing his identity, wrote Dan Katz for Treasury. At 4:53, a user called Pete Hegseth wrote Dan Caldwell for DOD, and at 6:34, Brian wrote Brian McCormick for NSC. One more person responded, John Radcliffe, at 5:24, with the name of the CIA official to be included in the group. I'm not publishing his name because that person is an active intelligence officer. Good on him. The principals had apparently assembled. In all, 18 individuals were listed as members of this group, including various National Security Council officials, Steve Witkoff, President Trump's Middle East and Ukraine negotiator, Susie Wiles, and the White House Chief of Staff, and someone only identified as SM, which I took to stand for Stephen Miller. I appeared on my screen only as JG. That was the end of the Thursday text chain. After receiving the Walls text related to the Houthi PC small group, I consulted a number of colleagues. We discussed the possibility that these texts were part of a disinformation campaign initiated by either a foreign intelligence service or more likely a media gadfly organization, the sort of group that attempts to place journalists in embarrassing positions and sometimes succeeds. I had very strong doubts that this text group was real because I could not believe that the national security leadership of the United States would communicate on Signal about imminent war plans. I also could not believe that the national security advisor to the president would be so ridiculous as to include the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic in such discussions with senior U.S. officials up to and including the vice president. The next day, things got even stranger. At 8:05 a.m., Friday, March 14th, Michael Walls texted the group, "Team, you should have a statement of conclusions with taskings per the president's guidance. This morning in your high side inboxes, high side in government parlance refers to classified computer and communication systems, state and DoD. We developed suggested notification lists for regional allies and partners. Joint staff is sending this AM for more specific sequences of events in the coming days, and we will work with DoD to ensure COS and OVP and POTUS are briefed." At this point, a fascinating policy discussion commenced. The account labeled JD Vance responded at 8:16, "Team, I am out for the day doing an economic event in Michigan, but I think we are making a mistake." Vance was indeed Michigan that day. "Hey, Ken, welcome to the group. We're discussing a Signal text messaging group that included a reporter prior to us bombing another country." JD Vance responded at 8:16, "Team, I am out for the day doing an economic event in Michigan, but I think we are making a mistake." Vance indeed was in Michigan that day. The Vance account goes on to state 3% of U.S. trade runs through the Suez, 40% of European trade does. This is a real risk that the Republic doesn't understand this or why it's necessary. The strongest reason to do this is, as POTUS said, to send a message. The Vance account then goes on to make noteworthy statement, considering that the vice president has not deviated publicly from Trump's position on virtually any issue. I'm not sure the president is aware how inconsistent this is with his message on Europe right now. There's a further risk that we see a moderate to severe spike in oil prices. I'm willing to support the consensus of the team and keep these concerns to myself, but there is a strong argument for delaying this a month, doing the messaging work on why this matters, seeing where the economy is, etc. A person identified on Signal as Joe Kent, Trump's nominee to run the National Counterterrorism Center, is named Joe Kent, wrote at 8:22, "There is nothing time sensitive driving the timeline. We'll have the exact time options in a month." Then at 8:26, a message landed in my Signal app from a user, John Radcliffe. This message contained information that might be interpreted or related to actual current intelligence operations. At 8:27, a message arrived from Pete Hegseth account. "Veep, I understand your concerns and fully support you raising with POTUS important considerations, most of which are tough to know why they play out. Economy, Ukraine, peace, Gaza, etc. I think messaging is going to be tough no matter what. Nobody knows who the Houthis are, which is why we need to stay focused on 1, Biden failed, shocker, and 2, Iran funded." The Hegseth message goes on to state, "Waiting a few weeks or a month does not fundamentally change the calculus. Number 2, immediately risks on waiting. This leaks and we look indecisive. 2, Israel takes an action first. Our Gaza ceasefire falls apart. And we don't get to start this on our own terms. We can manage both. We are prepared to execute, and if I had final go or no go vote, I believe we should. This is not about the Houthis. I set out at 2 things: restoring freedom of navigation, a core national interest; 2, reestablish deterrence, which Biden cratered, but we can easily pause. If we do, I think we can only enforce. All we can do to enforce 100% OPSEC, Operation Security. I welcome other thoughts." Chris writes, I want to applaud this reporter on stepping up their investigative journalist skills. It seemed they were lacking greatly in the past 4 years when an incoherent president was apparently unidentifiable. Well, we don't know who the auto pen was. So we go on. A few minutes later, the Michael Walls account posted a lengthy note about trade figures and limited capabilities of European navies. Whether it's now or several weeks from now, it will to be the United States that reopens these shipping lanes. Per the president's request, we are working with DoD and state to determine how to compile the costs associated or levying them upon Europeans. The account is J.D. Vance, addressed a message at 8:45. At Pete Hegg says, if you think we should do it, let's go. I just hate bailing Europe out, quote, again. The administration has argued that Americans' European allies benefit economically from the U.S. Navy's protection of international shipping lane. Very true. The user identified as Hegseth responded 3 minutes later, Veep, I fully share your loathing of European freeloading. It's pathetic. But Mike is correct. We are the only ones on the planet on our side of the ledger who can do this. Nobody else even close. Question is timing. I feel like now is as good as any time. Given POTUS directive to reopen shipping lanes, I think we should go. But POTUS still retains 24 hours of decision space. At this point, Silent SM joined the conversation. As I heard it, the president was clear. Green light, but we soon make clear to Egypt and Europe that what we expect in return. We need to also figure out how to enforce such a requirement, e.g., if Europe doesn't remunerate, then what? If the U.S. successfully restores freedom of navigation at great cost, there needs to be some further economic gain in return. And then he shares several screen captures of the actual, oh man, this is golden. No matter what administration, in an era like this is great. That message from SM, presumably President Trump's confidant, Stephen Miller, the deputy White House chief of staff, or someone playing Stephen Miller, effectively shut down the conversation. The last text of the day come from Hegseth, who wrote at 9:46 a.m. Agree. After reading this chain, I recognize that this conversation possessed a high degree of verisimilitude. I don't have a clue what the hell that word means. The text and their word choices and arguments sounded if they were written by people who purportedly sent them or by a particularly adept AI text generator. I was still concerned that this could be a disinformation operation or a simulation of some sort, and I remained mystified that no one in the group seemed to have noticed my presence, but if it was a hoax, the quality of mimicry and the level of foreign policy insight was impressive. It was the next morning, Saturday, March 15th, when this story became even more bizarre. At 11:44 a.m., the account labeled Pete Hegseth posted in Signal, Team update. I will not quote from this update or from certain other subsequent texts, the information contained in them, if they had been read by an adversary of the United States, could conceivably have been used to harm American military and intelligence personnel, particularly in the broader Middle East, Central Command area of responsibility. What I will say, in order to illustrate the shocking recklessness of the Signal conversation, is what the Hegseth post contained operational details of forthcoming strikes on Yemen, including information about targets, weapons the U.S. would be deploying, and the attack sequencing. The only person to reply to the update from Hegseth was a person identified as the Veep. I will say a prayer for victory, Vance wrote. 2 other subsequent users added prayer emojis. According to a lengthy Hegseth text, the first destination in Yemen would be felt 2 hours hence at 1:45 p.m. Eastern. So I waited in my car in a supermarket parking lot. If this Signal chat was real, I reasoned, Houthi targets would soon be bombed. At about 1:55, I checked X and searched Yemen explosion, where they're being heard across Sana'a, the capital city. I went back to the Signal chat at 1:48. Michael Walls had provided the group an update. Again, I won't quote from this text except to note that he described the operation as, quote, an amazing job. A few minutes later, John Ratcliffe wrote, a good start. Not long after, Walls responded with 3 emojis. First, an American flag and fire. Others soon joined them, including Mar, M-A-R, who wrote, good job, Pete, and your team, and Susie Wiles, who texted, kudos to all, most particularly those in theater and to CENTCOM. Really great. God bless, Steve Witkoff. Responded with 5 emojis, 2 hands praying, a flexed bicep, and 2 Americans' flags. He responded, great work. TG responded, great work, and F and effects. The after-action discussion included assessment of damage done, including the likely death of a specific individual. The Houthi-run Yemen Health Ministry reported at least 53 were killed in the strike, and that number has not yet been independently verified. And he shows more screen caps. It's a lengthy article, but there is a lot of data here that is pertinent to what's going on in the world today. On Sunday, Walls appeared on the ABC This Week and contrasted the strikes with the Biden administration's more hesitant approach. These were not kind of pinprick back and forth. What ultimately proved to be feckless attacks, he said. This is an overwhelming response that actually targeted multiple Houthi leaders and took them out. The Signal chat group, I concluded, was almost certainly real, having come to this realization once it seemed nearly impossible only hours before. I removed myself from the Signal group, understanding that this would trigger an automatic notification to the group's creator, Michael Walls, that I had left. No one in the chat had seemed to notice that I was there, and I had received no subsequent questions about why I left, or more to the point, who I was. Earlier today, I emailed Walls and sent him a message on his Signal account. I also wrote to Pete Hegseth, John Ratcliffe, Tulsi Gabbard, and other officials in an email. I outlined some of my questions. Is the Houthi PC small group a genuine Signal thread? Did they know that I was included in this group? Was I, on the off chance, included on purpose? If not, who did they think I was? Did anyone realize who I was and I was added, or when I removed myself from the group? Do senior Trump administration officials use Signal regularly for sensitive discussions? Do the officials believe that the use of such a channel could endanger American personnel? Brian Hughes, the spokesman for the National Security, responded 2 hours later, confirming the veracity of the Signal group. This appears to be an authentic message chain, and we are reviewing how an inadvertent member was added to the chain, Hughes wrote. The thread is a demonstration of the deep and thoughtful policy coordination between senior officials. The ongoing success of the Houthi operation demonstrates that there were no threats to troops or national security. William Martin, a spokesperson for Vance, said that despite the impression created by the text, the vice president is fully aligned with the president. The vice president's first priority is always making sure the president's advisors are adequately briefing him on the substance of the internal deliberations, he said. Vice President Vance unequivocally supports the administration's foreign policy. The president and vice president have had subsequent conversations about this matter and are in complete agreement. I have never seen a breach quite like this. It is not uncommon for national security officials to communicate on signals, but the app is used primarily for meeting planning and other logistical matters, not for detailed and highly confidential discussions of a pending military action. And of course, I've never heard of an instance in which journalists have been invited to such a council discussion. Conceivably, Waltz, by coordinating a national security-related action over Signal, may have violated several provisions of the Espionage Act, which governs the handling of, quote, national defense information. According to several national security lawyers interviewed by my colleague, Shane Harris, for this story, Harris asked them to consider a hypothetical scenario in which a senior U.S. official creates a Signal thread for the express purpose of sharing information with cabinet officials about an active military operation. He did not show them the actual Signal messages or tell them specifically what had occurred. All of these lawyers said that a U.S. official should not establish, it's good advice, a Signal thread in the first place. Information about an active operation would presumably fit the law's definition of, quote, national defense information. The Signal app is not approved by the government for sharing classified information. The government has its own system for that purpose. If officials want to discuss military activity, they should go to a specifically designed space known as a sensitive compartmental information facility, or SCIF. Most cabinet level national security officials have one installed in their home or communicate only on approved government equipment, the lawyer said. Normally, cell phones are not permitted inside the SCIF, which suggests that as those officials were sharing information about an active military operation, they could have been moving about in public. Had they lost their phones or had they been stolen, the potential risk to national security would have been severe. Hegseth, Radcliffe, and other cabinet officials presumably would have the authority to declassify the information, and several of the national security alerters noted that the hypothetical officials on the signal chain might claim that they had declassified the information they shared, but this argument rings hollow, they caution, because Signal is not an authorized venue for sharing information of such a sensitive nature, regardless of whether it has been stamped top secret or not. This is a big mistake, considering we're looking at all the leaks in the government. There was another potential problem. Walls set some of the messages in the Signal group to disappear after 1 week, and some after 4. That raises question about whether the officials may have violated federal records law. Text messages about official acts are considered records that should be preserved. Under the records law applicable to the United States and Fed agencies, all governmental employees are prohibited from using electronic messaging applications such as Signal for official business, unless these messages are promptly forwarded or copied to an official government account. Jason Barron, a professor at the University of Maryland and former director of litigation in the National Archives and Record Administration, told Harris, intentional violations of these requirements are a basis for disciplinary action. Additionally, agencies such as the Department of Defense restrict electronic messaging containing classified information to classified government networks and our networks with government-approved encryption features. Good Lord. Several former U.S. officials told Harris and me that they had used Signal to share unclassified information and to discuss routine matters, particularly when traveling overseas and without access to U.S. government systems, but they never to share classified or sensitive information on the app because their phones could have been hacked by a foreign intelligence service, which would have been able to read the messages on the devices. It's worth noting that Donald Trump, as a candidate for president and president, repeatedly and vociferously demanded that Hillary Clinton be imprisoned for using a private email server for official business when she was Secretary of the State. It is also worth noting that Trump was indicted in 2023 for mishandling classified documents, but the charges were dropped after his election. Waltz and other cabinet-level officials were already potentially violating government policy and law simply by texting one another about the operation. But when Walz added a journalist, presumably by mistake, to his principals committee, he created a new security and legal issue. Now the group was transmitting information to someone not authorized to receive it. This is the classic definition of a leak. Even if it was unintentional, and even if the recipient of the leak did not actually believe it was a leak until Yemen came under attack. All along, members of the Signal group were aware of the need for secrecy and operational security. In his texting details aspect of the forthcoming attack on Houthi targets, Hegseth wrote to the group, which at the time included me, "We are currently clean on OPSEC. OPSEC, OPSEC is a military abbreviation for operational security." Well, I'm sorry to tell the SecDef he was wrong. Jeffrey Goldberg, who is the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic and the Washington Week with The Atlantic, was in the chat group. So he was wrong. Yeah. That's not good at all. So yeah, that I wanted to start with that breaking news because of course I've not been active on the media today, but I have not heard anybody else break that story. So maybe I got it first, and I got it through The Atlantic. You can go and find this at theatlantic.com. It is their headline. So we'll cover some other real quick breaking news. Former Utah Representative Mia Love, the first Black Republican woman elected to the U.S. House, has died. Salt Lake City, according to the AP, former U.S. Rep. Mia Love of Utah, a daughter of a Haitian immigrant who became the first Black Republican woman elected to Congress, died Sunday. She was 49. Love's family posted news of her death on her X account. She had undergone recent treatment for brain cancer and received immunotherapy as part of the clinical trial at Duke University's Brain Tumor Center. Her daughter said earlier this month that the former lawmaker was no longer responding to treatment. Love died at her home in Saratoga Springs, Utah, according to the statement posted by the family. With grateful hearts filled to overflowing for the profound influence of Mia on our lives, we want you to know that she passed away peacefully, her family said. We are thankful for many good wishes, prayers, and condolences. Utah Governor Spence referred to her as a true friend and said in the statement that her legacy of service inspired all who knew her. She entered politics in 2003 after winning a seat on a city council in Saratoga Springs, a growing community about 30 miles south of Salt Lake City. She later became the city's mayor. In 2012, she lost a bid against Democrat incumbent Representative former Jim Matheson in a district that covers a string of Salt Lake City suburbs. She ran again 2 years later and defeated first-time candidate Doug Owens by about 7,500 votes. Love didn't emphasize her race, kudos for her, during her campaigns, but she acknowledged the significance of her election after her 2014 victory. She said her win defied naysayers who had suggested that a Black Republican Mormon woman couldn't win a congressional seat in an overwhelmingly white Utah. Go away, Twitch viewer. She was briefly considered a rising star within the GOP, and she kept her distance from Donald Trump, who was unpopular with many Utah voters while he was running for president ahead of the 2016 election. In an op-ed published earlier this month in the Desert News, she described the version of America she grew up loving and shared her enduring wish to the nation to become less divisive. She thanked her medical team and every person who prayed for her. Love said her parents immigrated to the U.S. with $10 in their pockets and a belief that their hard work would lead to success. She said she was raised to believe passionately in the American dream and to love the country once and all. Love this country, warts and all. That's her quote from her, to love this country, warts and all. America at its roots is respectful, resilient, giving, and grounded in gritty determination, she said. Her career in politics exposed Love to Americans' ugly side, but she said it gave her a front row seat to be inspired by people's hope and courage. She shared her wish for her neighbors to come together and focus on their similarities rather than their differences. Some have forgotten the math of America. Whenever you divide, you diminish, she wrote. She urged elected officials to lead with compassion and communicate honestly with their constituents. In the end, I hope that my life will have mattered and made a difference for the nation. I love the family and friends I adore, she wrote. I hope you will see the America I know in the years ahead, that you will hear my words in the whisper of the winds of freedom and feel my presence in the flame of enduring principles of liberty. My living wish and fervent prayer for you and for this nation is that America I have known is the America you fight for and to preserve. In 2016, facing re-election and following the release of a 2005 recording which Trump made lewd comments about groping women, Love skipped the Republican National Convention and released a statement saying definitively that she would not vote for Trump. She instead endorsed Texas Senator Cruz in the GOP race, but he dropped out months later. While seeking a third term in 2018, Love tried to separate herself from Trump on trade and immigration while backing her party's position on tax cut, despite Republican voters outnumbering Democrats by a nearly 3-to-1 margin in her district, though she lost by fewer than 700 votes to Democrat Ben McAdams, a former Salt Lake City mayor. Trump called out Love by name in a news conference the morning after she lost, where he also bashed other Republicans who, quote, didn't fully embrace him. Mia Love gave me no love and she lost, Trump said. Too bad, so sorry for that, Mia. After her loss, Love served as a political commentator on CNN and as a fellow at the University of Sydney. Following Trump's election in November, Love said she was okay with the outcome. Yes, Trump said says a lot of inconsiderate things that are unfortunate and impossible to defend, she wrote on a social media post. However, his policies have a high probability of benefiting all Americans. She was a true American and patriot, and we are sorry for her loss. That's former Utah Republican Mia Love, the first black female Republican elected to the U.S. House. She will be missed. She sounds as though she's a really nice person. I would have loved to have got to meet her. Hey, Wendell, welcome to the show. We'll cover a little bit more breaking news. And now, actually, well, let's just skip to our normal mayhem of stuff. We'll go to my normal wheelhouse, and we will return to this if we have time. So let me close this and then open this. There we go. All right. So FEMA was up, alert, and oriented this morning, and they gave us a daily operations briefing. Yay. I'm glad. FEMA has been on their game this weekend. So, all right. So national current operations and things they are monitoring. They are still monitoring the Oklahoma wildfires. They're concerned about heavy snow in the Great Lakes. It's spring. It's spring. And they're concerned about Gulf Coast and Northwest rain and thunderstorms. They completed a declaration for the Table Rock Complex fire in South Carolina. They are monitoring no new events. The Oklahoma continues to experience elevated fire weather and southwesterly winds forecast throughout this afternoon. Although watches and warnings have expired for Oklahoma, the National Watch Center continues to report on 8 fire management assistance grants, FMAGs. Fires with approximately 32,418, more than 13,000 acres burned, according to the East Thunderbird Station number 2. The Keystone Oak Street fire report over 50% containment and mandatory evacuations lifted. Oklahoma's Emergency Operations Center, severe weather and wildfires. The governor declared a state of emergency on March 15th, and the governor requested major disaster declaration on 21 March. FEMA responded and is watching the event. They've sent teams, and the National Weather Service is continually monitoring. And there are multiple pages of the fires that were in Oklahoma that burnt. In South Carolina, they advised that fire management assistant grant for Table Rocks, consisting of the Table Rock Persimmon Ridge fires burning in Pickens and Greenville counties. They have the state level. The governor has declared an emergency, and they have sent in FEMA. They've posted temporary flight restrictions in the area so that they can support aerial firefighting operations. We'll look at that in a bit. All right, so we'll get to the national weather forecast. My dog doesn't like that, but we'll get to the national weather forecast. They're saying that today there's going to be snow in the higher elevations of Washington, extending over to Missouri, and then picking up again at the top of the country there with our friendly Canadian neighbors at Wisconsin and Michigan. And I've already had a report that there was light snow in Vermont this morning. Rain extending down the East Coast and the Atlantic all the way to the Gulf of America, including Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia, and part of East Tennessee. Tuesday, that is going to continue moving across the top of the country with snow falling in the main area and extending down into possibly West Virginia, Kentucky, maybe the higher elevations. Wednesday, that's going to stall and sit right there while the rain moves across the center of the country, going in a southeasterly direction, affecting mostly Texas and Mississippi and probably Missouri. I'm sure by Thursday it'll grow more. The cold front that's staying up to the top of the country there is going to push down and isolate a small segment of snow in the Washington, Oregon, and the northern California mountains on Wednesday. The most severe weather outlook extends today from the coastal Carolina region down to the coast of Florida, crossing over into the Gulf of America, all the way to Texas in that little line there of states affected: Louisiana, Alabama, Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina. And then Tuesday, The extent of severe outlook looks to be mainly over the center of the country, with it returning Wednesday to the Midwest in a larger area and down along the coastline of Texas, extending up into Missouri, and some more severe weather expected on the West Coast. But we will get on that as we see. I'm sure by then it'll change. All right, so currently this is the FEMA Operating Center and things they're concerned about. They're concerned about the snow in the west, the Seattle mountains, all the way extending over through Idaho, and well, almost all the way across the top of the country, let's just say. They're concerned about that snow, and then they're concerned about significant weather, probably flooding along the coastlines and down into Georgia. And that is it for the FEMA Daily Briefing. And then the next thing we cover, we always talk about President Trump's schedule. Well, for Monday, he hasn't texted anybody on Signal that I know of. I'm waiting for his return to accept my request. 9 a.m. press pool time. 2 o'clock, the president and the governor of Louisiana will deliver joint remarks. At 3 o'clock, the president participates in a Greek Independence Day celebration. Not sure what a Greek Independence Day celebration is. So he had returned last night from, where was he last night? He was in, Saturday he was in, New Jersey? Yeah, New Jersey. He was at the NCAA wrestling championship, where, as I understand it, a lieutenant in the U.S. Air Force won the championship, and he returned to the White House late Saturday evening, him and Melania. So he stayed inside the White House on Sunday. He had no public events, and there was a lid called on the house at 10 a.m. Sunday time, which means basically the president, nobody's in and out. It's a quiet house. They leave him alone. I pulled up the forecast weather map to make sure there was no inconsistencies. It remains consistent with what we told you about from the National Weather Service, pretty much also for tomorrow and then into the 3-day forecast. And I was going to pull this up. Let me hit back arrow here one more time and see if there's nothing in the tropics and there's nothing in the Eastern Pacific of concern as far as tropical cyclones affecting the United States. The severe outlooks are today for down at the tip of Louisiana. Well, it went away. The tip of Louisiana and part of Alabama. Right, so weather warnings. I don't think this will show us anything. Nope, that's not the one I wanted. I was going to see if I could pull up. Nope, I can't, I don't think. I was going to see if I could pull up a temperature forecast and see if it would tell us. All right, well, let's skip out of this because hopefully our Australian friends are back tuned in. I had sent them an email. I don't know if they have replied. Well, they have, so maybe I'm on, I'm not sure. All right, so we're looking at Australia here, and we see that it's cloudy on the northwestern coast of Queensland down into New South Wales, Northern Territories, and over on the coastline of Western Australia. Radar shows small storms over in Queensland and up at the top of Darwin and over in Carnarvon. Can I pronounce that wrong? And I apologize. Precipitation for today is mainly going to be in Queensland, with some of it to be moderate. They're still concerned about flooding in that area, if you recall, from the tropical cyclone. Wind speed forecast doesn't look to be anything too major. Right now, the highest winds are at 18 miles per hour, pretty much towards the center of the continent. And then along the southern coastline of South Australia and Western Australia, there's some 20-mile-an-hour wind gusts. We'll cover the wind here a bit more in a bit, but can I zoom out for it? I can. This is a different one than I use on the other one. So there we go. This does show temperature. Let's just zoom out. I'm going to play with this for a minute and say, well, that's as zoomed out as it goes. This one is not as good as our other one, but this is a new one that I've been playing with. I've got some other new things I'm going to try and share today. All right, there's the United States. We see the wind is coming in and up over Seattle, over the mountains, crossing down towards Denver. where it hits a little cyclonic effect. That dry air is going to extend from Montana almost to the Gulf of America, and that's going to be a main concern for fire. And well, we'll talk about lightning here in a bit. And this is showing wind gusts currently in Atlanta at 9. In Ottawa, it is at 7. Over in Seattle at 4. Down in San Francisco, 3. So there's really mild wind gusts. The temperatures look to be rising along the beach coastline from Maine down to the Carolinas. And the Gulf of America is staying pretty much the same temperature. So I believe that is a temperature map. No, that's not the temperature map. Let's go to the temperature map. That's what I was wanting. Duh. Okay. So here we go. So it has, I was right. It has extended up to almost Maine, where it's 54 up in Chesapeake, and it's 79 down in Tampa, where Ross is. Lucky him. Houston at 79. So in the Gulf of America, it is here. So spring break has arrived. And down in my favorite part of the world, in the Keys, it's also in the 80s temperatures. I love it. I love it. We'll swing over to Australia, and we'll see that it is 85 on their northwestern coastline, and 82 on the southern coastline, the Golden Coast, down around 76, 75 degrees. All right. And let's see if we can pull this up. Feels like. See what that does. Got it. All right. So, well, like I said, up into the Chesapeake Bay region is where it cuts off. Pretty much there at Oak Island, it feels like in the 60s, and it feels like in the 70s in the Gulf, and down along the Keys, it feels like right at 80. So over on the left coast, it's still a little cool on the Pacific side. Down in San Francisco, it's only 52, all the way down to San Diego, where it's 56. All right. That's what it feels like. We're going to use this map more and more. I really like this map. So there we go. And I pulled this map up just because it's a really cool, another globe one. I know Chris will like it. And this is updated every 10 minutes. Let me go ahead and hit F5 to refresh it to make sure that it's up to date. And this is the world in real time. It shows the clouds. It doesn't show their movement, but it shows the clouds and the real-time weather events. And you can bring up other things such as radar, infrared, stuff like that. But I like this because it's a globe. I'm hooked because of the other one. And we go down and look at our friends down under in Australia, and it looks like it's going to be a cloudy day across most of the continent from the about the middle of the country westward onward. So, yeah. I'm going to be using this one a lot because I like it. All right. Next thing we go to, this is the current weather map. Now, it was a good map edition, Chris. Thank you. I got another few toys here. If I get time today, because I'm so rushed trying to get everything together, I either got too much or I don't have enough. I'm still learning to gauge it, and I'm still trying to learn to slow myself down when enunciating. It's difficult. So, all right. So we see that up along the mountains and the higher elevations of Seattle, where the first part of moisture starts entering our country. Currently, it looks like it's more rain than anything, but it's going to cool off during the day as that front tries to push down. That little trough of dry air is right ahead of the precipitation, and it's dividing the precipitation that just went across the country over the weekend and is now pushing off on the Atlantic coast. We see down in the Gulf of America, there are some severe storms, probably Escambia, what is that county? Probably from Mobile almost to Tallahassee. There's some pretty severe weather extending up into Alabama and the southwest corner of Georgia. So if you're listening from any of those locations, have a weather radio nearby, because there's probably going to be some severe thunderstorm warnings come out of that. Over on the coast of Savannah, same thing. And then we skip up ahead a little bit here and towards the mid-Atlantic region, pretty much from the coastline down from Canada, there's some type of precipitation. Up in the New England coast, they're experiencing rain and snow. Further inland, it's a heavier snow into Vermont, New Hampshire. and that'll extend into parts of Pennsylvania and New York. Further south, starting at around Maryland, we start to see some severe thunderstorm. I'm sorry, starting at about Pennsylvania, we start to see some thunderstorm activity along the coastline, which is going to extend into the Chesapeake Bay, Washington, DMV, Baltimore region. So keep an eye on that and be weather aware. The front is still pushing off to the east, so hopefully it will be out of our way, and there doesn't look to be anything significant coming for a few days after that. We'll go down and look at down under and compare it to what we saw earlier. Tropical cyclone, what was this, 20? So this is 27, is off to the, what would that be, the northwest, and it is extending out into the Indian Ocean and does not appear to be a harm to any of Australia. As we discussed in Australia, it's mainly going to be along the coastlines and it's going to be spotty showers, but we're still concerned over here along the Brisbane coast because of the flooding. So we do have that. Somebody sent me a message that said, how can you talk about weather for 3 hours? Well, I don't talk all about weather. Talk about other things, right? All right. So we got a weather warning. Once again, I do not endorse this site, or I do not endorse, and they do not endorse me. I just like to use this site because it's a pretty good indication of where things are popping off in the country. We see Andy sending out another test message in Maryland. I don't know why. God love him. He just likes to do that, mostly along the coastline. Yeah, Andy loves it when the evidence is washed away. Then why does he keep sending text messages? I don't get it. What's funny is I don't think Andy even listens to this show. He doesn't like the news, so who knew? Pretty much everything we've discussed already along the coastline, extending from pretty much Nova Scotia down along the Florida coastline, cutting across laterally there above Tampa, Orlando, into the Gulf of America, back up to the Georgia coastline as the area of concern, mainly for severe weather and flood warnings. There was a special weather statement in Vermont. I'm going to bet you it's for snow. Freezing rain, all right, in central Vermont. Well, my son flew out of there earlier this morning and reported snow. And where he's flying to, there's going to be snow there too. So I will only say my son is on the left coast for work for the next few days. So we see here is pretty much just as small craft advisories and warnings along the coastline. And we see the heavier stuff, winter storm warning up in Wisconsin, like we discussed. All right, so we can get out of this one. Please go visit this site if you'd like to hit their tip jar. Feel free, because it's a great site, especially if you're concerned about weather coming up near you. All right, and this one is a new addition. I have not shown this one off. I found this one. Oh, that's not the wrong one. What do I want? I want this one. And this is kind of cool because this is the live lightning map. And we see this strong storm located out in the center of the Gulf of America. That's the one that's going to be hugging the coastline of New Orleans, down in Mobile, Panama City, that area, and crossing northeasterly over Dothan, Columbus, maybe Macon, and it'll be extending out. But you can see the live lightning is most severe down in the center of the Gulf of America and along, looks like southwest of Mobile, Gulfport, most of it offshore and a little bit in New Orleans, but be weather aware. And this is lightningmaps.org. It's a great map. So let's pull out and see if it let's pull out and see if it covers. Well, we have Europe. So there's some severe lightning in parts of Europe right now, down in Madrid, over in, what is that, Slovakia? Yeah, down in there, some in France, and along the Indian Ocean there. All right, let's go to, is that the Indian Ocean? I don't know. It is for now. It is today. And we see over on the coast, northwestern coast, and the tip of the northern territory around the northwest tip of the northern territory, there's some severe lightning activity. So monitor your local government radios to make sure you're not getting involved in any serious storms in Australia. I'm not sure how their weather warning service works. I need to investigate that and see if we can hear it. Wendell says, do you know if Australia is 16 hours ahead of us? Wendell, there is let's see here. I've got a Let me see if I can find it here. I've got is it this one? No. Well, that one does, but it's not the one I want. This one. Here you go, Wendell. I'll just pull this over real quick. This shows our current time here in America on the East Coast. You see New York is 1:59. Chris, you're at 12:59 out with my friend in the Colorado mountains. It's just now striking high noon. And by the way, at high noon, welcome to everybody at Radio X. We're going to continue on with a little news and weather, and then we'll get more into popular entertainment, including some stories for your area. You can find us on Radio Yergs, yergsradio.com, and Rainbow Radio, as well as Radio X in Australia. We will also send this over to Spotify, Apple, and all the podcasts shortly this afternoon after some editing, and you will be able to download it and hear it there as well. All of the shows on my channel they are turned over to Spotify for distribution. Please come over and like, follow, and share. It is the Para or Normal Guys with a Z, 3 separate words, on YouTube, and join the chat and some of the lively conversation. And sometimes when you ask a question, I can answer it for you. Currently, good morning to Australia and Sydney. It is 5 a.m. And along different parts of the country, it is anywhere between 4 and 6 a.m. I don't have the breakdown for the whole continent, but this is a really cool website, Virtual Clock. So Wendell, check that out. It's pretty cool. All right, so we'll get out of the lightning map. And we will see in, like we were watching the lightning map, this map shows us where the storms are and the greatest effect of the power outages. In Texas, there's 21,000 people without power. In Louisiana, there are 25,000 people without power. And that's down around the area. I bet if we pulled it up and made it bigger, it would probably be, well, no, there. Now, is that county name? Damn it. It's Dimmitt. Damn it, Dimmitt. And is there really a county named Jim Hogg? I don't know why I find that funny. So, yeah, those are the two most affected areas in Texas. A county named Dammit and a county named Jim Hogg. I apologize to my Texas people for finding it so funny. And up along St. Hela, East Feliciana, and then over towards Acadia is where the most power is out. All right, so we're going to jump into that. This is an old map, but I just wanted to pull this up real quick to show you. These are the areas with drought where we're most concerned. We're most concerned about storms, and we will see that the storms will spark with the lightning will spark up some more storms, especially here in the South. Over the weekend, even here in Tennessee and the Carolinas, there was some significant fires. So everybody, please do not burn anything. And we pray that these storms with lightning get through without causing any larger fires. We're still looking at the map of Oklahoma in Oklahoma City. There's large fires out there. There's one in Texas of some significant size. And then down on the New Mexico corner with Texas, there's a fire. In the South, the Appalachian Mountains have several reported fires going from Georgia, extending all the way through the Carolinas, into Tennessee, through Virginia, and parts of West Virginia, and the Blue Ridge Mountains as well. Over on the coastline of North Carolina and South Carolina, there are still fires that they're worried about and other areas of concern. But this part of the country, pretty much draw a line across from Kansas across, is in a drought high fire area, and they're worried about the lightning sparking more fires. We look down in our friends in Orlando. They have several fires, probably over in that park that I like so much. Yeah, down in there. What is the name of that park? Merritt Island, over in Merritt Island, Cocoa Beach area. The fire down in Homestead, Miami, is still burning. They have reopened the intercoastal waterway Route 1, but it was shut down again for a period of time because the smoke moved down and that the fire was still getting close to Route 1. So, but as of right now, it is open. Wendell says, the show I have Thursday at 5 p.m. with Sarah from Yowie Central will be 9 a.m. Friday for her time. All right. Well, Wendell has a show that you can check out about Yowie Central. And this only shows fires in the northern hemisphere, which makes sense because it's a US Canada forestry map. All right. We'll look at this. We see where the main fires are, red being the largest wildfires, orange being newer, and the lighter color being prescribed. But we see where the bulk of the fires, as we said, are pretty much Oklahoma, extending along the Appalachian Mountains and the coastline down here. But what I wanted to highlight more than anything was the smoke map. The smoke is pushing out into the Gulf of America, down over old Mexico City and Guatemala City in Honduras. So, and then extending back to the west. So most of the smoke is being pushed down south. However, we look at the wind map. Let me refresh this. Yes, we know. And we can see that the wind is, like we discussed earlier, pushing down along the Rockies, going back to the northwest, and it's got a small little front crossing over Chicago, going across the Ohio Valley, back up into the northeast. We'll look at the bigger one here in a minute. And along the southern side, at the Gulf of America, down along the Florida Panhandle, extends northward up to about Oak Island and the Cape of North Hatteras up there. That wind, and that's that chain of storms we discussed. And right now, this is the air quality map. And we see that the worst part is pretty much Atlanta, northeasterly, all the way up to Norfolk and down almost along the coastline. And pretty much all of Florida, excluding part of the Panhandle, is having a bad air quality day. And I'm guessing that's mainly because of the fires down in Florida. Over in Oklahoma City, that is probably because of the fires, as well as in Phoenix and in Southern California. Southern California. There's that. And I brought this up because, well, it's that time of year. This is the pollen map because I woke up sneezing. Tree pollen is high right now from Texas all the way across both of the Carolinas, and it's moderately high to that, above that, almost up into central Kentucky and southwestern Virginia is where the tree pollen is, and the weed pollen is not that bad at the moment. Give it time. But the tree pollen is what's worse. I have a breathing index map where they show the worst places to breathe right now. I wish I could enlarge this. This is on the Weather Channel. Where the worst places to breathe are. They're mainly along the Gulf of America and on the Florida, Georgia the Florida, Georgia beaches. And let's see. They had another map I thought was interesting. There's the grass pollen map, aches and pains map. I don't understand how the Weather Channel can predict aches and pains. I mean, as I've gotten older, I've kind of felt like when a storm is coming in, but yeah, the aches and pains is moderate over Texas, extending back towards Southern California, and that little area in the middle Midwest is high for aches and pains. I don't know. I just thought it might be a nice addition. So record-breaking warmth is what's ahead, as they say. We'll see. I don't know. And our favorite map of all. Everybody that doesn't know, this is our AI wind map of the globe. You can pull it up on is it earth.com? When I minimize it, I'll tell you for sure. But you can see this is the wind, and you can pull this apart to anywhere in the globe and see what the wind conditions are and how the wind is traveling on the globe. Or if you're a flat earther, across the planet. Would it be across the planet if you're a flat earther? I don't know. Wendell, what do you think? We look down in Australia and we see the wind pretty much as we saw it earlier. That cyclone there is going to be moving off to the northwest. Northwest? No, it'd be southwest. And when we look over into the tropical regions for any activity for us, there is none. So this time there is no areas of concern. So there is the globe map. And it is brought to you by it is at earth.nullschool.net. And if you want to go check it out on your own. Wendell is like, yes, thumbs up, I guess, because of this. Wendell, I brought this up only for you because I know you like to keep up on earth-shaking events. I'm just going to cover the ones here in the United States. Texas had in Toya had a 2.8. Out in Arizona, they had a 2.9. In south of Scenic. And then in Yerington, Nevada, they had a 2.5. I will hop over to our friends down under and make sure they don't have any earth-shaking events. And it does not appear that they did. We might get into more earthquakes around the world in a little bit, but I'm going to try and get everything in. All right, so big news has been here recently, the measles. So far, the states highlighted in blue are the states that have it: Michigan, New York, Vermont, Pennsylvania, Maryland, and is that Maryland? Yeah, that's Maryland, Ohio, Kentucky, Georgia, Florida. Texas has the most severe with over 250. Kansas, New Mexico, there's California cases and Washington cases, and now Alaska is reporting cases. No cases reported in Hawaii. That is the current measles map, updated as of March 20th, and it seems to be growing. 40% has grown 40% in hospitalization. In the cases range under 5 years, 42%, 5 to 19 years, 31%, over 20, 27%. Unvaccinated seems to be the highest rate of those with it. It's only required out of all the cases, 17% of the cases that went to the hospital have went. 17% of the cases that have went to the hospital have required hospitalization. There has been one confirmed death and one under investigation so far this year. And to date, as of the 20th, there were 378 cases, which the most, 1/3 of the cases are under 5 years, with 5 to 19 years being the bulk of it, with some over than 20, about 25%. And mostly 95% in unvaccinated people. That is the CDC's map of measles case and outbreaks. We'll go over to the next thing we have. We love this map, but we changed it to the list so that we don't have to continually look at everything. And we'll just cover events that are new. Is Alaska still splitting? Well, not that I'm aware of, Wendell. In Bulgaria, 40,000 chickens had been affected with a new outbreak of bird flu. That was over the weekend. Also, I did learn that we are importing a large number of eggs that usually are used for animal food, and we are making provision with the FDA and shifting them over to human consumption if they've been, whatever they do, x-rayed or whatever, so that it will lessen the egg crisis. So Brazil is coming to our rescue with more eggs. Yay, Brazil. All right. So we'll go on. In epidemics, Nigeria, 6 students have died of Nigeria at the university. Pakistan, 17 children die in 2 months because of measles. And Argentina, dengue cases are soaring. Over in the United States, we talked about the Texas and New Mexico measles outbreak, and that'll get us back into other older news. Over the weekend, United Kingdom has reported that bird flu in sheep for the first time. Cambodia says the 3-year-old child has died from bird flu over the weekend. Pakistan reports its first monkeypox case. The patient is isolated at Jinnah Hospital. Please keep them over there. No offense, but we don't want monkeypox here in the States. Nothing new to report there. In traffic disruption at Heathrow, of course, we know that extended into the weekend and caused so many problems. We do need to get, Wendell says we need to get the Easter Bunny to deliver more eggs. I don't know if I want the Easter Bunny's eggs, but whatever, Wendell. I'll let you have what you have there. All right, let's see. Nigeria, 1 officer is dead as 12 inmates escaped the Kogi Custodial Center. Well, okay, let's hope they stay down there. Yesterday, 2 poachers shot dead by field rangers in the national park. Good for them. And on the 23rd, the French president condemns anti-Semitism after attack on Orleans chief rabbi. Okay. And Yesterday, Pakistani 4 laborers from Punjab were shot dead in Kalat. And over the weekend in the United States, there was a mass shooting in New Mexico. I believe 9 were injured. And they had 13 injured over the weekend after a car pursuit through the streets of Paris. What if they were filming James Bond? Okay, too soon. In South Africa, a tragic shooting and burning at Sashagave leaves 4 dead and 8 injured. And demonstrations, Israel is protesting in droves in government moves as they want the government to remove the attorney general. And in Turkey, they're protesting the Istanbul mayor. That was a very large one. I saw it over the weekend. In Kenya, 6 police personnel were killed by suspected al-Shabaab fighters. In Pakistan, security forces killed 16 terrorists attempting to infiltrate from Afghanistan. And let's see. Well, we know that war has been ongoing in certain areas of the world. Ecological disaster, toxic algae bloom in South Australia, leaving surfers sick. We talked about that in the Sea Life Killed. They're just going to call it a toxic algae bloom. In Cyprus, panic as toxic bugs are causing chaos. Okay, guys, we got to look at this. It says toxic bugs. We need to know what a toxic bug is. Feeding on pine needles, these insects can cause skin irritation and damage large forest areas. Pine tree caterpillars have sparked heated discussions in Cyprus as they continue to decimate forest areas covering approximately 90% of the island. For years, the country's forestry department was spraying pine trees with harmful chemicals to manage the issue, but now only biological preparations are being used to try and stave off the caterpillars. The problem has alarmed residential communities. A community leader of the Guri village, Karakis Roaz, I know I butchered that, said he contacted the forestry department but was told they could not spray near residential areas. He said the pine trees near the communities are full of caterpillars and are worried that the trees will die. The caterpillars are also very harmful to health. Last year, we nearly lost a lady who touched them. He was told he could try and spray the area himself, but that is a costly business. He added to spray the whole community would cost 2,000 euros. A poor community such as ours, with just 250 inhabitants, cannot afford it. Pine caterpillars feed on the needles of pine trees in large numbers. They can severely weaken trees, making them more vulnerable to attack by other pests and diseases, causing environmental stresses such as drought during rains and floods. We know what happens. All right, so it's a caterpillar that has people so concerned, and one person has almost died by touching the caterpillar. Well, here's a hint. Don't touch the caterpillar. Let's see if we can see what one of these little creatures looks like. Let's see if we can just pull that up. And not now. No. It's not going to show us a picture of the caterpillar. I don't know what it's showing us a picture of. All right, well, we'll try something different then. I just wanted to see what one of these little things was, why they're so terrified by it. Thank you, Wendell. I do appreciate that. Please like, follow, share, and subscribe. Where did we see that? Pine tree caterpillars. Let's try that search and see. I want to see what these little buggers look like since they're terrifying human beings. Yes. Just show me an image. Oh, well, yeah. I wouldn't touch that booger. Would you? Wendell, would you touch that? That's a pretty scary looking caterpillar. Turns into a beautiful moth, though. So don't touch the caterpillars. That's the moral of this story. And so that comes to us from Cyprus. Toxic bugs. We dropped 2 explosions. Nothing new reported. In Italy, man serious after a Rome B&B collapses after a blast. I'm going to guess it was probably gas related. Dozens injured in Iran explosion. Don't know what that's about. And Hungary, shocking accident in Hungary. A grenade blew up during training. Woman lost her hand, forearm, and a soldier was also injured. That is horrible. Let's see. Large fuel tanker explodes in Niger at the filling stations. Guyana, 200 people affected after fire destroys a section of Critchlow Labor College. And a fire breaks out at Disney's Epcot, making a huge plume of smoke over the resort, causing them to close it down. We knew about that. Well, if you'd read the news, you knew about that. UK, smoke scene for miles as fire breaks out in UK Market Town. And we see that Nigeria's had several large fires. South Africa has had several large fires. South Sudan, there's wildfires are growing. We talked about earthquakes, the most recent, largest one in Indonesia, the last two. Iran has a magnitude 5 earthquake. Hopefully that's not them testing. In the south of Pacific, a 4.7. Several 5.0s in China, in Iran, with this 4.0 in Mexico. Volcanoes erupting down in Indonesia, I think, or they're going to actually in Kilauea, they are all pretty much been quelled. They have stopped erupting. They're just oozing. Can you say oozing on the radio? In Australia, 4 people and a child were rescued from flooded outback track in South Australia. And that is the most recent for flooding damage. In the Republic of China, top floors of an old building collapsed. 1 missing, 1 dead. In Ecuador, bridge collapse. In India, 2 dead after a 100-foot chariot collapses during temple procession in Karnataka. 3 men were burned alive after bike comes in contact with fires in the Raja Cops. Okay. Nigeria, blaze reported at the gas line. That was earlier reported near the tanker filling stations. And Filipino, last of 6 foreign hikers missing in the Philippines were rescued. Congratulations. And over the weekend, 11 injured as large tree falls on school bus in Tewksbury Township. I did not know about that. A Russian Federation plane crashed during a training flight. And in Somalia, 5 dead after a Kenya cargo plane crashes in Somalia. And over the weekend, a small helicopter crash in Japan and Central with 2 minor injuries. In South Africa, a tragic Impala jet crashes on the West Coast at an air show, shocking spectators. In Nepal, 17 were injured in a Jeep accident in Ceylon. How do you have 17 people in a Jeep? Good Lord. Ukraine, 5 killed, 18 injured in a traffic accident in Crimea, according to the emergency ministry. In Mexico, 12 dead in a crash that caused a forest fire. In India, good Lord. Jammu and Kashmir, 4 dead after road accident in Ganderbal. In New Zealand, we have 12 injured in a crash. Japan, a driver was injured and killed, and 20 injured in a bus crash in central Japan. In Egypt, we have deadly crash claims 7 lives and injured others in Egypt. And over the weekend in Malaysia, a bus driver seriously hurt 20 Chinese tourists in elite highway crash. And on the waterways in Portugal, we had a container collapse. In Indonesia, that's an old one, Australian tourist hurt and 2 dead in a Bali boat capsize. The Indian Ocean, tropical cyclone 2725. We saw it was moving out and wasn't bothering anybody. That was the one before this one. Let's see, nothing new in the droughts. Extreme rainfall we reported in South America, central Canada. Okay, wasn't aware of that. Rail damage, hail damage, pretty much Louisiana, Texas, where the severe storms are, with lightning severe damaging Indonesia, Tanzania, Kenya, and Indonesia. Oh, I said Indonesia, didn't I? They're worried about persistent thick fog in Brazil, Canada, and the Russian Federation. And in severe weather in India. We're talking about worldwide events as well. And they're concerned, we talked about the storms that we're concerned about in the U.S. with tornadic activity. So there we go. And that was the worm. Stay away from that worm. And pretty much we discussed all of this already. The storms, the droughts, and then the storms with the fires being down in the Gulf and all of Oklahoma. So we pretty much discussed everything on this. Nothing really new here to report. So we'll kind of just bypass. It says 2 new notifications. Let's see what they are. An avalanche hazard and blowing snow. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to bet that those are in Northwest. Probably going to be up towards the Rockies. All right. Over the weekend, it was reported that with the space storm, the sunstorm, that the aurora would be seen down into almost the center of the country. That was an inaccurate report. And this is the most recent space weather prediction of where you can see the northern lights and the aurora. And it's pretty much not going to affect maybe the top of Canada and part of Alaska. It's really nothing for us to see. Later in the week, there is another larger sunstorm that may affect some things. All right, so we looked at this, the earthquakes, the cyclones, the two cyclones we talked about. 2725 and 2625 was the older one. So 2725 is the newer one that we saw out in the ocean. Was it the Indian Ocean? No, it's not the Indian Ocean. It's Pacific. No, it's the Atlantic. It's down in, it's off the coast of Australia. Talked about volcanoes, droughts, and the forest fires, so nothing new there. I found this new cool map. This is from US Interactive Live News Map. Due to time constraints, I'm not going to go over all of it, but you can see things here. And you can just bring them up. When you click on it, it brings up crews continue to battle a 500-acre wildfire in Sequatchie County amid rough terrain and challenging weather conditions. That's in Tennessee. And let's see what this is. I'm just clicking on things at random here to see what they are. A stabbing in southeast Charlotte left one dead, sparking a homicide investigation. Over in Greenville, one dead in a shooting. So up down to where Wendell is in Anniston, a single vehicle crash early Sunday morning claimed the life of a 21-year-old Anniston woman. Abigail Stovall was fatally injured when her 2019 Kia she was driving veered off the roadway, struck a culvert, and overturned. All right, and let's see, Chris, up by you. Don't really see anything. I mean, I'm just going to look at this as probably all gun violence and murders up around Chicago. I'm just going to guess, Chris. It's a wild guess. Let's see. What else do we have here? Up along the New York, up in the region, up in the northeastern region, it looks like there were some murders and fires along in Manhattan, and down here in what is this, Elizabeth, a teen from Newark was arrested after a shooting outside an Applebee's in Linden. 3 suspects remain at large. Yes, Wendell, I did, but I didn't see any activity for today, at least. I'm going to have to rely on you since I look at so many of these other websites to kind of help me keep up with things. So down where Brenda is, the fires in Killeen, and what is this? San Antonio officer fatally shoots a machete-wielding man during an assault call. Well, he brought a knife to a gunfight. What can I say? Shooting outside a Latino sports bar injured 6 people and 4 in critical condition in West Houston. Like a bad area. Police investigate a deadly dog attack in Northeast Houston. All right. And Salt Lake City, you don't usually see stuff there. 2 people were hospitalized with multiple gunshot wounds after an incident at West Valley early Sunday morning services, according to West Valley City Police. All right. Yeah, it's just a guess, Chris. It's just a guess. Since I'm running short on time, we will cover that more later. But it's just a guess. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney has called for a general election to happen on 28 April because he's saying that America wants to take us over. I don't know. Over the weekend, President Trump said he was going to give us to the King of England, Charles. I got nothing. I'm not even going to try anymore. I'm running short on time. You can go over to the New England Fire Net. It looks like it's still mainly pretty much from Washington. There was a stabbing in D.C. and pretty much fires is all that's been reported up and down the coast. In Georgia, there was a couple fires. Lamar County, that's the barn fire in Spalding and Lamar County. It turned into wildfire, and in Floyd County, they're still trying to control that wildfire. But most of this is the New England area. I encourage you to get a scanner and listen to your local communications, your police and fire. Join this site; it's free, and hey, maybe you can give us something to report on. All right, I brought this map up to show, well, a couple things. This currently is all the military aircraft in here across the United States. This is just military. And you can see there's a lot of training stuff going on. And you can see there's a lot of stuff coming from the other side of the world. This should be coming from Europe. Yeah, it's coming from Europe. But nothing groundbreaking here. Down in Florida, they're always doing training along the coastline. This is probably border traffic. This is probably a fighter jet that's had to check in so he can get refueled. Now that's a T-38 trainer. So you'll see them on the map. You can get this all at the ABS radar. And this is all public domain. I'm not saying anything and exposing any military secrets. These are all aircraft that are, quote, squawking, and you can pull them up. If you hear an airplane near you or an aircraft like a helicopter, you can pull it up and you can see this is, well, it's not showing what kind of helicopter it is, only that it is a helicopter and that it is flying at 1,900 feet. Wendell, I don't see much down there around you. Atlanta, that's probably a training mission. Over in Nashville, it's probably a Black Hawk on a training mission, just out flying around. Pilots getting their airtime. Nothing nefarious, I'm sure. And up here along the Washington region, this is all probably patrolling the skies above Washington, D.C. King Air, he's coming in from up in the Northeast. Okay. You can see that. And that'll bring us to our next map, since we're running out of time here. This is the current temporary flight restrictions for UASs, and they're basically unmanned aerial vehicles, drones. We see the biggest area being over Washington, D.C., and we see down here on Mar-a-Lago with several spots across the southeast. And up here in Canada, for some reason, there's still space operations going on. What are we doing from Alaska over into the Arctic Ocean with space operations? Why aren't they telling us? So I don't know. So that's the most latest thing. These are significant meteorological events, mainly turbulence along the main coastline there, extending down into, well, almost into Philadelphia. And then you'll see the turbulence along coastlines from the storm. This is that storm we looked at in the Gulf of America. I did not look at the farce or the balloons today, Wendell. So I don't know. I was trying to pull up these other maps and running short of time, so I didn't get to all of them. So I will, if we get a few extra minutes, we'll check it out. But anyhow, that's the areas where there's significant meteorological events, i.e. turbulence, and these are areas that you can't fly or are restricted or prohibited. And then I found this one over the weekend, and I think this is particularly interesting. What we're looking at, this is real-time cyber threats. And if you'll notice, America is under attack. We're always under attack. And they're coming from, it looks like, interestingly, Russia, Ukraine area. And it looks like they're landing mainly up in Chicago and along the East Coast. But this is real time. You can go to Bitdefender and look and see where the attacks are popping up. You can see a little line going from where they are to where they are. Man, they are hammering wherever that is right there. It's probably Denver. Can you click on it and tell you? Can you zoom in? No, you can't. That's the middle of the country. That's probably Denver. And along the bottom here, if you can keep up with it quick enough, you can see, well, we're the top country being attacked, Germany being number 2. The red are actual attacks. The orangish yellow are infections, and the white are spam. So those are attacks. America and Russia are the two most attacked. It's something interesting to note from this map. Um, there's very few down in Australia, and mostly it looks like infections. They don't look like attacks and some spam, but we don't see many things coming from the United States. Well, out along maybe the what is it, Silicon Valley, some extending up into, you know, Europe and Russian Federation over in Slovakia. But for the most part, most of these attacks are coming at the United States, whether they're attacks or spam. So I find this interesting. Last over the weekend when I pulled it up, this thing was even wilder than it is right now. I mean, we were just getting hammered consistently by Russia. So yeah. So these are current real-time cyber threat attacks on things. So it could be anything from a local computer to your 911 center to some critical infrastructure. But you see that we are constantly defending ourselves in cyber threats in the United States. And yeah, if you can keep up with that down there, there are different, you can read what they are and the infections, the name of them. And you know, what's really crazy at the same time, there's somebody figuring out how to counter all these things at the same time. So it's crazy to look at, but that is real-time cyber warfare. AI and cyber warfare are going to be the thing of the future, unfortunately. All right, let's see here. I have other maps pulled up. Oh, that's me. That's that one. All right, we'll hop over to some more news real quick. Winding up the last half hour, we'll do trending news and current events. And this one, Jill Biden shares a rare look at her and Joe Biden's life post-presidency. Biden's took to Broadway. They went to see a star-studded opening night of Othello, which, as I understand, starred Denzel Watson and Jake Gyllenhaal in the famed William Shakespeare play. It was with the 46th president donning a classic black tuxedo and Jill opting for a glittering blue long-sleeve dress. All right. So that's what the Bidens are up to. Following the show, the couple, who share Ashley Biden, 43, and his son Hunter from their first marriage, posed for photos. Well, that was nice of them. Wendell, they definitely are using AI to launch cyber attacks. There's a picture of the former president and former first lady out on the town in New York City. They both look healthy and well. Good for them. So they enjoyed a night out in the theater. And from what I understand, here he's holding the playbill for Othello. The play was an actual success and has gotten good reviews. So congratulations to the former president and first lady for getting out on the town. I'm sure it is much more stress-free than being in the White House. So hopefully they had an enjoyable night out. We're running back into old news for that. Yeah. I do have some other news about presidential people. This is for our friends over in Australia. Monique Ryan apologizes after a video shows her husband removing a Liberal challenger's campaign sign. The MP's husband, Peter Jordan, says he thought the sign for Liberal candidate Amelia Hammer was illegally placed, but says removing it was a mistake. All right, so he has apologized after a video circulated showing him removing a campaign sign for Ryan's Liberal challenger from outside a Melbourne home. The incident prompted the Australian Election Commission to issue a warning to all candidates about the importance of civility during the campaign. This is something we've heard recently. So they have it over in Australia, down in Australia as well. The video, also applied to The Guardian by a coalition sources, shows a Jordan woman walking down the street with a large sign as the person filming the video, asking why he took it down. He replied, because it's on public land, but he declared to give his identity when asked the person filming. It was later determined who he was, and he believed it was illegally placed. He said, I should have reported my concerns to the council rather than removing it. Well, you shouldn't have removed it. It goes on in a long story to basically tell you him apologizing. So, all right, we broke this story before anyone else. It's two we've had here at the Sportcat Daily Gazette. Make sure to tell your friends, families, neighbors, come over, Sportcat shows paranormal guys on YouTube like, follow, share, and subscribe, and they may get something new. So the U.S. Northern Command has deployed second Burke-class guided missile destroyer to support the operations along the southern border, per President Trump. The U.S. Navy wrote in a press release that the USS Spruance, which is a Arleigh Burke-class guided destroyer, departed Naval Base San Diego to support the mission. All right, so we've got two. The USS Spruance deployment as part of NORSCOM's southern border mission brings additional capabilities and expand the geography of military capabilities working with the Department of Homeland Security, according to General Gregory Guillot. Did I say it right? Gilliot. So the second one comes. We're tracking the cartels, and we're probably going to take them out. Let's hope. And it does remind us that the Chinese are heavily involved in this, coming from Canada and Mexico, as well as a few direct shipments. But the Chinese are heavily involved in this. Of noteworthy news, fentanyl deaths are plummeting. They're saying as many as 8,000 people have 8,000 less people so far have died from fentanyl, and the use of fentanyl has decreased by almost 10%. That's a huge win. Deaths are down more than 26%. So that's good news. But we're trying to figure out why there's not so many deaths. Wendell, we'll see you later. I only got 20 minutes left, Wendell. You can hang out. Some of the deaths are being some of the life saved are being praised by Narcan, which was a game changer. They're saying weaker fentanyl and dangerous but less lethal street drugs, better public health, and many of the most vulnerable people have already died. Well, that's a disheartening theory. And the waning effect of the COVID pandemic, the isolation, trauma disruption is another reason for the deaths declining. And people are using fentanyl and other street drugs more skillfully. Well, okay. And these are all theories. None of these are science. A decline in young people using drugs, I would say that's a big part because we've produced better education. However, cartels don't want to lose money, so they are now finding more cocaine being brought into the United States. All right. What did I do? What did I do? I don't know what button I pushed. Oh, what? Oh, I see what I did. Okay. So ICE arrests 68 more Trinidad gang members. Yeah, I know that was kind of a interesting one. All right. So in less than 100 days, the Trump administration has arrested 394 members of Trinidad. And we know that they're known for human trafficking, kidnapping, drug trafficking, and other violent and heinous acts terrorizing American communities. So over the weekend, they nabbed 68 more. Did they go on to say where they were at? I know some of them were down in Florida. No, it doesn't go to say where they were. I know some of them were in Pensacola, Mobile. I do know that, but no, it doesn't really go on to say where. But yeah, so get them out of the country. Get out. You're not wanted here. All right. Pam Bondi, who we know is our Attorney General here in the United States, issued a warning to the unhinged Representative Jasmine Crockett over a Musk takedown. Said to tread carefully. We know over the weekend Hollywood did the same thing, said there must be a Musk takedown. We certainly did not have a member of Congress conspiring with the radical far left NGOs to sabotage the most trade-in American car and critical to retirement and pension funds for millions of Americans on our bingo card. But here we are, the far left Congresswoman, Jasmine Crockett, joined a Tesla takedown teleconference last week, laughing and rooting for Tesla and Elon Musk's demise. Now, this is my little spin on this. They were for it before they were against it. Because we remember the whole Green New Deal, everyone went out and loved Tesla. They were buying Teslas. Hollywood had them. Elites had them. And now suddenly they're bad. So they were for them before they were against them. I find it highly I don't even know the right word. They're switching to gas guzzling SUVs when they trade in the Teslas. So if you were for green energy, now you're for fossil fuel energy. I don't know. Anyhow, hypocrites. Yes, I guess that would be the best word, Chris. Hypocrites. I agree. Hypocrites, because they were for it before they were against it. January changed everything. Anyhow, Pam Bondi is getting involved, warning to tread carefully following her support for the tech down. She's an elected official, so she needs to tread very carefully because nothing will happen to Elon Musk. And so we're going to fight to protect all Tesla owners throughout the country, she said on an interview on Fox. She warned them that they will protect American citizens who own them, and they will protect Elon Musk. In her interview, they go on, they show the radical Democrat Congresswoman calling for the violence in a video. You can watch it on X. And then you can also remember we were one of the first to report the hypocrites burning down Tesla vehicles in Las Vegas. And now we have found that they have leaked data websites and data on GPSs so that people could actually go out and, quote, hunt them. If you remember, we were one of the ones to report on that. There's a nice little picture that shows pretty much we were for it before we were against it. So, all right, I will leave it at that. And the FBI has issued a warning over the left-wing terrorist attacks against Tesla. The FBI released a bulletin Friday warning the public about the threats coming from far-left extremists aimed at Tesla. The bulletin comes after the attacks on Tesla stores and vehicles were triggered by outrage from the far left over the role that Elon Musk had in helping the Trump administration gut waste, fraud, and abuse out of the federal government. So they were for green energy, but now they're against it because we want to save money, cut costs, and eliminate fraud. The FBI said that the attacks on Tesla vehicles, dealerships, storage lots, and charging stations have occurred in at least 9 states since January's. These incidents have involved arson, gunfire, and vandalism, including graffiti expressing grievances against those perpetrators perceived to be racist, fascist, or political opponents. These criminal actions appear to have been conducted by lone offenders, and all known incidents occurred at night. The Bureau warned that the extremists needed little planning to use rudimentary tactics such as improvised incendiary devices and firearms, and may perceive these attacks as victimless property crimes. Officials warned the public to be extra vigilant around Tesla dealerships or Tesla-related entities until the threat subsides. And they go on to list in the FBI briefing the specific areas of concern, and note that this level of violence is insane and deeply wrong, and that this could be considered terrorism. And it goes on to say that these people would be caught and brought to law and justice, just as other terrorists have been. That's the FBI press release. You can go check it out at fbi.gov. I couldn't get out of here without this. Walls offers lame apology for mocking Tesla stock drop, and it called critics, quote, butthurt. Or have we heard this before? Prior to January, when you made fun of somebody else or made a joke, oh, they're just butthurt. All right, well, Tim Walz is the latest one that was for it before he was against it, and that now he's just saying that you can't take a joke and they're butthurt. But yet, when other elected officials in a different party make a joke, okay, all right. So Tim Walz is saying that we are just butthurt over it. Well, Trump and Clay Travis, I love the headline, fantasize about Caitlyn Jenner's and others pounding Tim Walz after ass kick gate. Radio host Clay Travis had a presidential interview with Trump, and they discussed several scenarios in which Governor Walz gets his ass kicked by the likes of Caitlyn Jenner, wrestling icon Kane, Knox County, hell yeah, he's the mayor, Glenn Jacobs, whom Trump defeated in November when Walz was the bottom of the VP ticket for Harris. got controversy started over the weekend when he said he could kick most asses of Trump supporters. Come on, Wallace, bring it. I'm an old man, bring it. I think I could kick most of their asses. I do think that I know I can outrun them. But I do know that if we're going to fall into into that place of, okay, we're going to challenge you to a WWE type thing, Wallace told Gavin Newsom on his podcast over the weekend that, well, or no, I'm sorry, that was before the weekend, that he could kick most of their asses. Over the weekend, Travis scored an exclusive sit-down interview with Trump aboard Air Force One that featured plenty of questions you probably wouldn't hear in the legacy media interview. Now, that must be noted that media outlets such as ours do report other things that others don't. This is an exchange between Travis and President Trump. He says, you saw Tim Walz when I know you talked about Tim Walz saying that he could beat up Trump supporters. Did you see Caitlyn Jenner said that she thought she would be able to take him? Who would you take in a battle, Caitlyn or Tim Walz? President Trump replies, oh, Caitlyn all day long, but also know, you know, Kane, Travis replied. Yes. Trump said, how about Kane, the Tennessee mayor, Glenn Jacobs, known as Kane in the wrestling world? Travis, oh, Glenn is an awesome guy. He challenged him. I put up 10 grand for that too. In the challenges, I don't think Tim Walz has responded yet. Trump said, by the way, they wouldn't last a second. He's like 7 feet tall. and Trump replied, he is the big, Travis said, yes, Trump replied, he is the biggest human being. Travis said, he is an awesome guy. Trump replied, he is a great guy too. He's a mayor of a town and he's all MAGA. Personally, having met the gentleman, he is an awesome individual. And I feel he could kick Walz's ass. Hey, speaking of they were for it before they were against it, well, Trump is demanding a, quote, full-throated apology from the Maine government after the state caves on the women's sports fighting right. President Trump is demanding an apology from Maine Governor Janet Miles after the University of Maine system, UMaine, acceded to Trump's demand to bar biological males from competing in female sports. The president has feuded with the Maine Democrat for weeks over whether trans-identifying students should be allowed to compete against women in girls' sports leagues. The president has threatened to withhold federal funding from the state until it agrees. UMaine, which includes 8 public universities across the state, backed down this week and agreed to the reform its rules in trans-identifying players competing against female athletes. Trump said in a post on Trump's social on Saturday that Mills should apologize for attempting to fight the federal government over the issue. While the state of Maine has apologized for their governor's strong but totally incorrect statement about men playing in women's sports, while at the White House governor's conference, we have not heard from the governor herself, and she is the one that matters in such cases, Trump wrote. Therefore, we need a full-throated apology from the governor herself. And he's making that request. All right. Speaking of the Trumps, Tiger Woods, we reported this, if you remember, Tiger Woods is confirming a relationship with Vanessa Trump. Love is in the air. Golf legend Tiger Woods has confirmed the rumored relationship with Vanessa Trump, the former daughter-in-law of President Trump. The 49-year-old made the announcement on both Instagram and X, following months of speculation that the two were secretly dating. Love is in the air, and life is better with you by my side. We look forward to our journey through life together. At this time, we'd appreciate your privacy on all those that chose our hearts. Woods posted photos of the couple together. Isn't that cute? Love is in the air. Tiger Woods and Vanessa Trump. I almost said Ivanka. That would have been wrong. It's Vanessa and Tiger. That's cute. All right. And then Ivanka Trump, well, she made news for showing off her mad martial arts skill. She made impressive martial arts skills in a video that's gone viral on social media, and a clip posted on X shared by Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu studio in Miami Beach. Trump's daughter dons traditional Jiu-Jitsu attire as she punched, kicked, and flipped the guys her size to the ground. Several times in the clip, Ivanka appears to be fending off a possible attacker. At one point, she defends herself from the other person on the mat who's carrying a knife. Within a few short moves, Trump's daughter is able to secure her body in a position to eventually rid her possible attacker of his weapon, which we see drop to the floor. The martial arts school recorded captioned the post, "Jiu-jitsu is more than a martial art, rooted in tradition and guided by the 753 code. It builds physical confidence, mental clarity, and emotional balance." They tagged Ivanka in the post and has more than 1.4 million views the time this was published this morning. I don't know if it'll actually show it. Let's see. Will it show it? Yeah, she is flipping guys over. In case you missed this, she is she's showing some skills there. Now, granted, I'm sure they're not going too tough on her, being as who she is, but still, she's showing some good skills. So good on her. It is not only good physical exercise; it's good for the soul, mind and soul. And what did Chris say? He is just trying to shift attention from being hard and being afraid to wrestle Kane. Oh, hell yeah, he is. So he doesn't want to wrestle Kane. There's no way he wants to wrestle Kane. So we can't go without saying that over the weekend we lost a great one. Boxing legend George Foreman died at 76. He was 19 years old when he won the gold medal at the Mexico City Olympics in 1968, a year after my birth. Two-time heavyweight champion, Olympian gold medalist George Foreman died on Friday. He was 76. He rose to prominence as a boxer, but after he retired, he launched a successful line, and everybody had one, didn't they, of in-home grills, which sold millions. His family shared his passing on their official Instagram account. "Our hearts are broken with profound sorrow. We announce the passing of our beloved George Edward Foreman Sr., who peacefully departed on March 21st, surrounded by loved ones." His family wrote, "A devout preacher, a devout husband, a loving father, a proud grand and great-grandfather. He lived a life marked by unwavering faith, humility, and purpose." And he did have quite a very large family. He was definitely a ladies' man. And if I understood correctly from other media sources, he named like 12 of his kids George. So all around boxing legend George Foreman, and the Foreman Grill has passed away at the age of 76. Another interesting story I brought up in the last few minutes. The Ukraine military issues a bizarre recruitment ad featuring McDonald's cheeseburgers. Amidst controversy and backlash in unleashing Ukraine, after the country's defense ministry decided to make a fresh recruitment video on TikTok using the lure of McDonald's. The clip appeared this week on the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense's official channel, desperate to seek more young recruits in the army's depleting ranks, and they distributed the video of them eating cheeseburgers from McDonald's. You can go on X and see that, but that's interesting. All right, we are almost out of time. Let's see. Miley Cyrus has a new album. Kiss is going on an unmasked concert tour starting in Vegas. We'll skip most of the sports scores. Snow White, which we talked about, was pretty much a flop. There's a new movie called The Residence that involves a whodunit set at the White House. That's pretty cool. Check it out. And then there's a new iPhone managed humanoid coming out to the public in the very near future. So if you're interested in any of those things, there's your Google search homework. That's pretty much all of the news I had to report on today. And we're so close on time. There was no, hold on. Let me bring this up real quick. There was one other thing I do want to report. And this isn't up-to-date information, but over the weekend, there was another line of duty death. Sergeant Grant Candies from the St. Tammany Parish Sheriff's Office in Louisiana passed away. And I thought we had another one. Do we not? Nope, we don't. All right, well, we do, but it hasn't been made public yet. And today, there is still only 18 firefighter deaths. We'll report on the other firefighter news and police news on our next show. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I guess I should get Optimus off the screen and put me back there. I do appreciate your patience with me today. I got off to a couple minutes late start. I'm not sure if we made it out on Radio X. I hope we did, because I really appreciate our fan base down in Australia. I appreciate it, Ross, at Yerg's Radio and Rainbow Radio for allowing us on their airwaves so we can tickle more people's ears. Of course, I encourage everyone to come over to the YouTube site, and we use the handle Para or Normal Guys, 3 words, guys spelled with a Z, or you can just search out the Sportcat shows. So I encourage you to check that out. Also, want to encourage people on Tuesdays and Thursdays on the Thin Line Rock Station from noon till 1400. That's Eastern Standard Time. You can listen to me spinning some records and playing some hits and telling some stories and jokes on the Thin Line Rock Station. And look for me to start reporting news there very soon. I think that's about everybody. I've got everybody. Oh, I want to thank the Bigfoot Radio Network for allowing us to come on their airwaves as well, or their internet radio station. Chris says he liked the new globe and lightning back. Thank you, Chris. Hopefully tomorrow we'll have everything a little bit better off, but you know how it goes. Everybody, I appreciate your time, your support. Please hit that thumbs up button. It helps get us spread out across the YouTube verse and helps our show's stats. So everybody have a great day. I will see you tomorrow. Same time, same place. Have a great day. And until then, Sportcat is out. I'll go out with playing my song that I was trying to play when I started. And then I was not talking to. Get it right yet. That is that.